On today's video, let's talk about the Garrison role. Are you going to take the Garrison role in your account and your experience in Rise of Kingdoms? Well, this video will tell you everything you need to know about being a successful Garrison captain, understanding the role a little bit better, understanding the requirements, and everything that has to do with being a Garrison captain. So sit back, slap a like on the video, and let's go. Hey there, YouTube. Welcome back to Gekko Gaming. We are holding for dear life. Our flag is getting sieged out the wazoo with a Pakal Herald rally, swarms and everything along the way. And it was time for the Garrison captains to step up and try to hold on to a flag that was being annihilated. Of course, our flag fillers and everything and all that were part of making this a successful hold. But in this video, I want to focus specifically on garrisoning and kind of give you a little bit of an understanding on what it takes to be a Garrison captain, because it's not just get the commanders, get the stuff, and that is that. Let's start with what is required out of an account to be a Garrison captain. Now, you'd think to yourself, oh, you only need to have commanders and that is it. Well, not exactly. Obviously, number one is you want to have the latest and greatest Garrison meta commanders. And that is, in this particular situation in time, we have Zenobia and YSS being the top. But there are pieces in here that are going to come in and out of play quite a bit. And if you ask me, in future Garrisons, we're still going to be seeing both YSS and Theodora being key players in the future Garrisons. I'm trying to keep this as generic as possible. So at this point, Zenobia is meta, but we're foreseeing some Archer meta in the future. You should be able to have the latest and greatest commanders available. And of course, number two, you want to have gear for those commanders. And we're speaking as high of a level gear as you can get. And I would say that there are garrisons that have better gear than mine, or worse gear than mine. And there are people with better gear than mine. But the more gear you have, the better gear you have, the better off your garrison is going to be. So if you're going to be a Garrison captain, you need to make sure you're focusing your equipment, materials, blueprint hunt, whatever it is, on specifically this over spreading it to your open field, rally, marches, whatever the heck you want to play with. If you're going to be a Garrison captain, your number one focus has to be that, to the point where I got the horn, which could have become an archer horn per se for the next meta, but I was a current captain and needed it for the current meta and therefore went with infantry for my horn. Now, the next thing you should know is you have the commanders and you have the equipment. You have to be VIP 17. Now, of course, you can try to get away with VIP 16 or below, but at VIP 17, you're going to get 5% extra damage. That is massive for pretty much any important role. You want to be VIP 17, and you want to at least bare minimum. It's nice to get that extra healing resource consumption and troop capacity and march speed and all that. That's all nice, but in level 17 definitely sits that extra 5% that are key for any impactful role. And finally, the most important thing you need to have is troops, and you need to be able to conserve troops. As you can see, our KVK is just about over, and with the exception of my infantry, which is pretty much out the window, I still have a decent amount of a bunch of different types of troops, including the fact that I need to delete all these sieges now and all that, but those are there for now. They were meant to use in the Garrison. We're going to drop out of Imperium. Those are going to go away, but I had to maintain troops in my account, because if I run out of troops, it's game over for the Garrison. Now, if you run out of troops to fill rallies, you can always bring a farm to keep filling the rallies with T4s if we need to. But the Garrison captain's speciality is the commanders and the equipment, and so they must be able to either have the troops available and or able to emergency make more troops. We created 700k or 800k troops throughout the KVK. We did some of it on stream. And so definitely need to be able to push that up and be aware that as a Garrison captain, you're going to take deads out the wazoo. It's just how it is. Most of this was garrisoning. The infantry, the cavalry and archers were a little bit of rallies, but we primarily garrisoned. And you should be aware that when it comes to it, you're going to shove any type of troop just for the Garrison. With Zenobia YSS, it was still okay. But in the next meta, if it's going to be Archer Garrison and requires archers only, then you're going to have that depth of troops to be able to not run out of troops and continually garrison throughout the KVK. All of our garrison captains in 401 have still troops remaining, and that is because we were expecting more fights, which didn't happen, but whatever. One thing I forgot to mention is kind of obvious. If you're in Season of Conquest, you have to have Crystal Tech. You don't need to be fully maxed. I don't think that a garrison captain or a rally leader for that matter has to be 100% teched out, because guess what? Not every kingdom has the ability to have 100% teched out people. What happens when all your 100% teched out people are NA and they're asleep during EU times? You're not going to hold a flag. You're not going to rally anything. And so you need to be able to get, in my opinion, at least this to level 10 if you're an infantry garrison, archer garrison, whatever it will be. You really want to get to that second level and get that to 10. That's the bare minimum, in my opinion, that'll make you a competitive garrison captain. And of course, all the little things around it, right? If it's to grab a better city skin with better stats, if it is to make sure you have the boosts available and ready to rock and roll, which we ran out of because we were buying them throughout the KVK. 10% defense boosts are extremely, extremely important. That you're hunting runes, which, you know, occasionally you don't have the ability to get a rune. Everyone around you is enemies, and to get to a rune, you'd have need someone to taxi you, which happens. People do get taxied out for runes. But you really want to make sure you have all of these things figured out and understand them well and have that arsenal in your bag ready to rock and roll. One final tip I have for you guys, by the way, is follow the meta. Unless you get relatively unlucky to be in a place in time where you have to be the meta decider. For example, anyone going into KVKs right now is going to have to get the archers and figure them out. Thankfully for us, we can get out of KVK, watch other people do the archer stuff and know if we need to invest in archers or not. But my personal opinion is always have the arsenal in your bags, but not in your commanders. What do I mean by that? Always have the sculptures ready to expertise instantly a commander that you would need. If the archer's garrison is a thing, then we'll know we need to get it done. Always have the materials and blueprints on standby. I could very easily right now go and upgrade. I mean, I literally can at this moment in time go into my Shio's return, click refine and quick refine, and I can refine them. However, I don't know whether this will be useful in the next KVK or not. So wait to see what you need, build your arsenal in your bag, and once you know what the meta is, unless you're unlucky enough to have to be the first one to test it, and then it is what it is, prepare. There's no need to forge equipment, to expertise commanders, none of that until the night before the fight. Now, I've been saying that for a while, but that's a small tip just in case. Now let's get back into the garrison stuff. Now that you know what your account needs to have, let's talk about the parts of the role that you need to understand that are beyond just the sending the captain to the flag, and that's it. First and foremost, believe it or not, being a garrison captain is extremely, extremely hard, because unless you're only captaining, which is what I'm doing right now, you're trying to also open field while garrisoning, the likelihood of you accidentally pulling your garrison out of a flag or of a building is huge. There is legitimate mechanics that you need to understand in the game and follow in order to not make that mistake. When I took on the role of garrison captain, I went and practiced. I went and held a flag in our kingdom, and I sent 4 marches to the field and a garrison, and I kind of figured out a little bit of what are the things that I need to know. For example, every single time you will see me go on the field, the first thing I do is I make sure that my garrison march is the most bottom one of them all. Why? So I can double tap so mistakes don't happen, so forth and so on. I do recall my open field marches, even if they're full, in order to make sure that the first one out is always the garrison. And if it's not that case, then it means that we have a situation that's a little more critical, or I can't pull my marches back. In that case, every single time I pull 5 marches out and 1 is in the garrison, I tap a place, and then I go select all. I deselect the garrison march, and then I march the rest of the marches, so that if I ever accidentally do that the garrison march will already stay unticked by default. These are little things. I always do my best to double tap on the side on the field rather than use the select all mechanic. So there are a little bit of tips and tricks that you need to know about garrisoning, about the mechanics that you can very easily practice on your own. The next thing you need to know is that beyond having all the accounts and all that, you need to understand how the mechanic of a flag works. As you can see in our flag, there is hundreds and hundreds of marches, up to 100 marches in a flag. And when you are under siege and your garrison is getting weak, you're going to need to be able to replace garrisons with someone else. For that, I truly think that a garrison captain has to not only be a person that has the commanders and troops, but also has the attitude. You're going to need to give them titled R4. You're going to need to have the 2 or 3 people swapping garrisons to be titled R4. That way they can swap each other. Finding easy or anger in the flag is ridiculously harder for me than it is for them. Why? Because for their march, they're going to have on the right side the return symbol. So they can just scroll all the way until they see the return symbol, and then they find themselves and they can replace themselves. That's how I find myself, and that's why when I'm garrisoning in this kind of a scenario, I prefer to let them go down as low as they can go before I have to get in and replace them, because it's much easier for me to quickly replace myself in than bringing them back later. So anytime they come in, I tend to get out and I tend to go get my march filled back up, because I know that I can switch quicker myself in, as they were not titled R4s at the time. Once Easy became a titled R4, he changes me, I change him. He changes me, I change him. Anger, go. As you can see, I keep saying in an Anger refresh, Easy refresh, Gekko refresh, Anger, and so forth and so on. Every time one of us was in, we talked to each other and we got it done. As a garrison captain, you're going to have that personal investment in the role and that personal responsibility to understand that people are filling the crap out of your flags. But if you are not doing your job, then all of their troops are going to be in vain. It's not simply just put the march in. You're going to have to know at what time it's a good time to replace your march, how far down you can go, what kind of there is so many factors beyond just that to be a good garrison captain, you're going to have to take ownership, and you're also going to need to have an alliance that allows you to take ownership. If you don't have the ability to become an R4, titled R4 in times of need, then it's going to be extremely hard. Anna in the previous flag tried to replace the garrison, but because it wasn't her march, I mean, everything was working against her. It wasn't her march. There were tons of marches out there. And every time a march comes in, it changes the order of marches. So every time you scroll down and one march comes in, it kind of hops and then you lose where you're at. If you notice, I keep scrolling down all the way because when there's a march marching towards the flag, it's always at the bottom. And then once it comes in, it usually jumps up a couple of positions, but finding it from the bottom to the top is much easier than searching from top to bottom. And so these are little things you should know as a garrison captain in times of need that are like micro important, like Easy coming in and out and all that. These are small things that will make you a good garrison captain. It's not only about the stats. The stats are extremely important. But if you don't have someone who's taking ownership of the flag, which Easy always took, Anger always took, I always took, Brawny took, it becomes much harder. For Brawny, he had a little bit of a snafu during KVK because he pulled back a march accidentally, but that's not because he's a bad garrison captain, but it's because he did not practice the mechanics. And so now that he did practice the mechanics, he feels more comfortable doing the role. And so understand that being a garrison captain is fun. It requires you to take personal responsibility. You can't just leave a garrison in the flag and go away. I mean, you can. Eventually, they'll have to get rid of you. But your your flag captain has to be always topped off, be there, and ready to rock and roll. That's my opinion on how a garrison captain should behave. And that's my opinion, and that's how I take the role personally as a garrison captain. In the future, on this channel, we're going to talk about rally leading, about field fighting, about flag filling, and even, believe it or not, about farming, because these are all important roles that do have their little niches that people just think is just launch the rally. That's it. Fight on the field. That's it. Farm. That's it. It's not exactly that. There are tips and tricks to play each role better than the average, and that's what this series is for. I'm Gekko. I'm out of here for everybody who dropped likes on this video. Subscribe down below, and I'll see you in the next roles video. Take care. Have a good one. Peace.